Plan resource management. So this process is done only at predefined times. It is not done throughout the project. Why? Because it makes more sense to define the resources and not change it. Because with the change in the team member, when a resource like a huge machine is changed, now it is no longer available for us. A lot of project related knowledge and the statuses, they move away, right? So they might think, the HR might think that removing a stakeholder will be very easy, like replacement could be very easy, but it's not always the case. So a lot of knowledge goes away with that candidate. So it creates a void in the project. So for this reason, planning of resources is done only at specified times. They don't consider that, okay, this candidate is going to move on. No, they don't do that. So let's see what we have to achieve here. We have resource management plan created. So also one of the important points of the final project management plan. So what information does it contains? Identification of the resources, how we have acquired the resources, what are the roles and responsibilities of each of these resources. All this thing is mentioned here. Now, it could also include like training plan, rewards and recognition history. All these things can happen. Team charter, new term, right? We have discussed about project charter before, but I think team charter we are hearing for the first time here. So this is nothing but an agreement. You remember a project charter is an approved agreement, right? So here also team charter is an agreement that holds the values or the operating guidelines within the team. So this is done so that the expectations of the behavior of the team or behavior from the team is clear to everyone, right? So we expect something from the team and the team has to agree for this. So just a set of organizational rules given to the new team or the project rules, because every project is special. Some customer might expect communication to happen in certain way, some meetings to happen in an organized manner, some reports to be given to them regularly, some specific standards from the customer, they are to be used for giving them the reports, right? So all these rules are given in this team charter. They are taught to the team, right? And then the agreement is given. Moving on to the project update, project documents update. Here, this is also a regular process. You must have seen in all the processes. All the relevant project documents gets updated after we finish with the process, right? So here it could be assumptions log, it could be risk register, etc. Let's look at what inputs we have. Project charter, just mind the difference. This is a project charter, this is a team charter. So project charter serves as an important input. We have project management plan. So here we can make use of quality management plan or scope baseline. All these things come handy as inputs. The project documents are used as inputs. Here the risk register, project schedule, or you might consider stakeholder register because we are planning the resources. That comes handy. So whenever you sit to work on any resource as a project manager, you have to make sure that all these things are handy. So, and of course, the enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets is important in almost all the processes. Just the common repeated inputs. So moving on, tools and techniques, the expert consultancy. You might have seen this is also an important tool in almost all the processes. So I think by now you might be answering these things quite easily. If a question comes, what are my tools in plan resource management? And then expert judgment is one of the options that you see. You can easily select these things. So that is why I'm representing this in examination format, so that these terms, because you are seeing this as I'm talking, these terms get stick, in the back of your mind. So just learn these things. So data representation tools, we have talked about expert judgment, data representation. We have learned a few data representation tools in our previous knowledge areas, but here we could make use of the other tools, like hierarchical charts. As the name says, what is the hierarchy of the humans, like, or human resources? Like, who is your boss, and who is his boss, and who is his boss, who is the ultimate boss, right? So that kind of hierarchy in the organization, that can be represented when managing the human resources. And resource assignment matrix, it's famously called RAM, resource assignment matrix. What happens here is that they relate the work to the resource. So this particular work is going to be done by this systems engineer, for example. This kind of code is being written by this IT engineer, for example. So that is RAM. And then we have RASIC charts, RASIC. What does it mean? It just means who is responsible, who is accountable, who is the support role, who is to inform when I'm doing something, and who is to consult if I have a problem. So these things are the data representation tools. Organizational theory. This is also a new term to you. So let's spend a few seconds also here. So this is nothing but the information on the laws of the organization. So every organization has its own set of rules, regulations, laws. So a set of common techniques that the organization has been using throughout the years in all of its experience. So that is theorized. Okay, so that is the organization theory. And of course, the meeting also can be a really good tool for almost all the processes. Moving on, estimate the activity resources. This is also mind that this is also not done throughout the process, but it is done at the set intervals. So this is similar to the other estimating processes, like the cost estimation. We do the similar estimating activities. So let's see the outputs. The resource requirements are finalized basis of estimates. Just the justification of why the resources are required there, and resource breakdown structure. Similar to WBS we learned. So here the resources are broken down, not exactly, but the hierarchy is given. So project documents get updated. What documents can be updated here? The activity attributes can be updated. Assumptions log can be updated. Lessons learned can be updated. So let's see the inputs. The project management plan, of course, an important input for almost all the processes. Here we can make use of the scope baseline, and the resource management plan can be used as a very important input. When we talk about project documents, we can make use of activity list, assumptions log, risk register, resource calendars. We are talking about estimating the resources. So the availability of resources, this is very, very important, because sometimes an employee or a stakeholder might be planning for a very long leave, a maternity leave for 2 years, right? So in that case, the complete project might even be finished by then, before the candidate comes back. So it is an important thing to know that an activities calendar is also used as an important factor, as an important project document. And then, of course, the enterprise environmental factor used as an input. Organizational process assets is always used as an input. Just a common input for almost all the processes. Let's quickly go through the tools. We have expert consult, bottom up estimating. I think we have learned also about this before. Analogous estimating, nothing but using the previous experience. Parametric estimating, I think we have learned all these things in the cost estimate activities, right? You do remember? Parametric, it's nothing but use of statistics to the analogous estimating. Multiple data analysis tools can be used. And then, of course, the PMIS and the meetings are very important tools for this activity. Moving on, activity resources. As the name says, this is to obtain all the resources, like people, facilities, materials, etc. Right. So this is also done at set time periods. Especially as and when needed. So let's take a quick look at the expected outputs. Okay, we have 8 outputs expected here. First thing is the physical resource assignments. This is nothing but a written document on the records of material and supplies. So all the records of whatever materials we have, whatever supplies we are left with, all that thing comes here in physical resource assignments. The project team assignments, again, similar written down documents on roles and responsibilities of the team. Right. So here, this is more focused on the physical resources, like not everything except humans. And here it focuses more about human resources. And as we have talked about resource calendar, a very, very important thing that gets updated. The change requests get updated, how this will impact the schedule and all. And project management plan is updated. The main important thing that gets updated here is the resource management plan and cost baseline. Project documents get updated. Here also lessons learned register, project schedule, resource breakdown structure, all these things come under these project documents that gets updated. Okay, something interesting here. You might have seen enterprise environmental factors always in the inputs and not in the outputs, right? But here you see these two, enterprise environmental factors and organizational process, as outputs, not inputs, right? Why? That's because we are going to update the resource availability, right? So the number of employees or the knowledge base of the organization is going to get updated after we acquire new resources, right? So we might hire a lot of PhDs, some a very high level financial manager. So the enterprise environmental factors, the internal factors especially, they have to be updated with this addition of new resources. So not just the human resources, you might consider very expensive testing machine is added, or a very expensive manufacturing machine is added. When you're talking about creation of a aeroplane, for example, or a rocket manufacturing. So in this, a huge resource gets added, and that definitely affects the enterprise environmental factors, internal factors especially. So that is updated. And why is organizational process updated? Because new people are joining, and fresh assignment of resources is done, so the processes might also get updated.